Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a time machine, back to June 1981, to break down a really intense speech by Sun Myung-moon to his followers in France. This speech is an amazing window into his core beliefs and the frankly extraordinary things he asked of his followers. Right out of the gate, the speech kicks off with this incredibly dramatic line. There's no warming up the crowd here. Moon immediately sets the stage for a cosmic, high-stakes battle for the soul of the world, and he's telling his followers that they are right in the middle of it. So here's how we're going to walk through this. First, we'll look at who he's talking to. Then we'll get into the huge problem he presents. After that, we'll check out his solution, these lines of salvation, and then dig into the mindset of suffering he wants them to have. And finally, we'll see the ultimate global mission he lays out. All right, first up, a message for France. To really get the speech, you have to understand who's in the room. Who is speaking and who is listening. The text makes this whole dynamic super clear. The dynamic is just unmistakable. It's like a general addressing his army. Moon is called father and master, and he's the one leading the charge. And his audience, they're not just believers, he calls them heavenly soldiers. This is so important because it gives them this heroic identity, right? And a massive task to save not just France, but literally the entire world. So, okay, now that we know who these soldiers are, what's the actual crisis they're supposed to be fighting? Well, Moon paints this incredibly vivid and desperate picture of a world that is literally drowning. And this quote right here, this is the core metaphor for the entire speech. In Moon's view, the world isn't just a little lost or misguided. No, it's a chaotic ocean, and people are actively, physically drowning in sin. It creates this sense of a life-or-death emergency that needs a desperate, immediate rescue. This sets up a really simple but powerful idea. On one side, you've got all of humanity just sinking under the waves. And on the other, you have the one rescuer, Father Moon. He presents himself as the good swimmer, the only one who can navigate these dangerous waters and, most importantly, provide the only way out. So, if the whole world is drowning, how exactly is this rescue supposed to work? The speech then pivots from the problem to a very, very specific solution, these lines of salvation. So the key idea here is the lifeline. Think of it as a rope thrown down directly from God. But here's the catch. It's not a passive rescue where you just get pulled up. To be saved, you have to actively, desperately cling to this line. And just as important, you have to help save all the other people drowning around you. Salvation isn't a solo act, it's a team effort. Now, what's really fascinating is how these spiritual lifelines become real-world demanding actions. Holding onto the line means you have to be fundraising. It means recruiting new members, which they call witnessing. It means maintaining sexual purity, constant church activities. These aren't just, helpful suggestions. They're framed as the literal ropes that will pull you out of the water. Now, this level of commitment, it requires a very specific state of mind, a certain attitude that followers are told they have to adopt. And spoiler alert, it has absolutely nothing to do with being comfortable. Moon puts this choice, this really stark choice, directly to his followers. It's such a powerful question, right? It's designed to completely reframe how they think about suffering. The path of hardship isn't something you avoid. It's presented as the noble path, the correct path. And that banquet, a life of ease and comfort, that's framed as a dangerous temptation. And there it is, the core theological twist. In this way of thinking, persecution isn't a sign you're failing. It's the engine of success and liberation. The more people oppose you, the more you suffer for the cause, the more central you become to God's big plan. It just completely flips the script on what hardship even means. And here is the ultimate payoff, the big promise. If you endure all this misery, you'll find a special, unique closeness with God. Moon even tells a personal story, saying that in his own darkest times, God would come to comfort him. This promise of divine friendship in the depth of despair, that's offered as the ultimate reward for a life of suffering. But all this individual suffering, it's not just for its own sake. It's all part of a much bigger, escalating plan that builds toward this huge, world-changing goal, saving France and uniting entire worlds. The mission is laid out like these expanding ripples in a pond. It all starts with one person's choice to sacrifice. Then, that personal commitment gets channeled to save their nation, France. And from France, it gets bigger, save Europe, and then finally, save the entire world. And to give this mission even more weight, Moon puts it in this grand historical context. He brings up Napoleon and Hitler, arguing that they tried to unite Europe, but they failed because they used force. And then he presents his own way, unity through love and sacrifice, led by him, as the only way to finally succeed where these huge historical figures failed. And the tools for this unity are pretty specific. A key strategy is encouraging international and interracial marriages, especially between old enemies like France and Germany. The idea is that the children from these marriages will be born without any of that old national hatred. You're literally creating a new generation that's free of old conflicts. And this whole thing is framed as finishing the job that Jesus himself left unaccomplished. Now, this huge vision, it's not some far-off dream. It's immediately brought right down to earth, with an urgent, specific, and incredibly difficult call to action, all symbolized by the number 40. So starting July 1st, just a few weeks after this speech, the French followers are told to start a 40-day mission. Their task? Go out to 120 different towns with basically no money, sleep wherever they can, and each one of them has to recruit at least 3 new members, who he calls spiritual children. I mean, it is a huge, immediate test of their faith and their endurance. This last quote really wraps up the whole deal being offered here. Moon is very clear. I'm not here to give you material wealth. The trade-off is simple. His followers have to give up worldly comfort and embrace a life of hardship. And in return, they're promised these incredible spiritual treasures and a central role in building the kingdom of heaven on earth. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. This speech demands everything from people: their comfort, their time, their relationships. So what is it about a message of immense sacrifice, especially when it's framed as this heroic mission to save a drowning world? What makes that so profoundly compelling? It's a question that really gets at the deep human need for purpose, for meaning, and for belonging to something bigger than ourselves.